RPG Book Club LongCast, a podcast where we play a little bitty bit of a biggie big video game and talk about how it makes us feel. I am Sam Allman.
I'm David Bernard Hauk.
And I've played this game for 40 hours, apparently.
Wow.
Weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, and today we will be discussing Quest 3. This is not episode 3, but we are discussing Quest 3 of Lightning Returns Final Fantasy XIII.
This is episode 5 on the fourth quest we do, Quest 3.
Yep.
Makes sense. But before we get started...
This is normal. Do not adjust your television set.
But before we get started, our top 3 things of the week is top 3, and this one is just name 3 cool ones. You don't have to rank them. E3 or game publicity hype moments. So it can be not from E3, but from E3-like things. Like
$599 US.
Exactly. Some
Getting
moment when a big company extremely wanted you to get excited about a thing, and it worked because you're a mark. The first one, that's a great one, Bernard. Bernard, just in case people out there are too young to know it, this is a really good one. Explain what that is.
Okay, so when Sony had their big E3 press conference talking about the PlayStation 3, it was a
2006, I think?
Probably. I don't know. It was a legendary just disaster, and every moment of it became a meme. They announced the price at $599 US.
Which, to be clear, was a fuck ton of money. I don't even know how much game consoles cost nowadays because I never buy them new. But, for context, I think the Xbox 360 cost $300 or $400, depending on which version you get. And the Wii was like $200. You could literally get the other 2 consoles for the same price as the PS3. So when they announced it, everyone was like, what?
Yeah, and then later some higher up at Sony was like, well, if you can't afford a PS3, you should get another job.
You don't want it.
Something like that.
You don't want it enough. Yeah, and that was also when they said giant enemy crabs.
And Ridge Racer.
And real-time weapon change.
Classic. Okay, so actual answers. I've got to shout out. I don't remember what year this was. But in one press conference, Sony announced the Final Fantasy VII Remake. They announced that The Last Guardian was real and happening, and Shenmue 3 was real and happening. And all 3 of those games are out now, and people like one of them.
Yep. One all-time hype moment for me, or whatever. I mean, it's always going to be Metal Gear for me because, no one knows how to hype a game like Hideo Kojima. At some point, he started cutting all of his own trailers, and he's
good at it.
He's good at it, first of all, but also oftentimes the trailers are part of it, which sounds a little bit so almost kind of lame when you say that. Oh, the marketing for the game is part of it. It just feels so corporate. But nah, man, I don't know, when you play Death Stranding, it is kind of part of playing the game is having watched the trailers that have come out thus far. Almost like reading the back of a book before you read the book or something. You know what I mean? It's pretty funny. So the MGS5 though lead up. Every MGS5 trailer was insanely hyped, but I recall, Bernard, me and you were hanging out watching E3 shit together at that one house we always hung out at where Brian and Sean lived. Also where you filmed. Sam filmed a little bit of his movie, and that was when they dropped the first gameplay trailer of MGS5, where they announced during the trailer that it was an open world game, and we lost our fucking bonkers. If I recall, the whole conference was very, very good, and that was just one part of it. It was one of those classic Sony conferences where it's just banger after banger after banger, right? But of course, I was losing my all-time mind, and that's a really great moment, not just because of the video game was cool or whatever, but also because it was a nice memory that I had of hanging out with my friends. So that's one.
One of my slightly jokey answers is after the GameCube, Nintendo was super hyping like our next thing is codenamed Revolution. We're going to completely change gaming. We're going to tell you all about it at E3, and everyone's like, "Man, I'm so excited!" Like, what's the controller going to look like? Because the GameCube controller was so experimental. Like, what's it going to be? I remember in like EGM they had drawn up like basically what ended up being the Wii U gamepad, but they were like, "Oh, the DS touchscreen is so cool. Like maybe if it had a touchscreen in the middle and like VMUs and all this other crazy stuff, like what could it possibly be?" And then at E3, Iwata shows up. He's like, "This is it," holding it in his hand, just like, "This is the revolution. It's real, guys." And then walks off. And like that was it. That was it showing. Nothing about the games, nothing about the motion controller, nothing, anything. He just held up a Wii.
That rules. I love that. Who was that? Iwata?
I believe it was Iwata, but I'm going off memory, so I'm not looking it up.
R.I.P. to the fucking king.
Trying to think of other times I got real hype.
Some like personal ones for me, because like gaming as a whole like completely lost its bonkers at the "It's All Here" trailer, or they're all here, everyone's here,
everyone is here
for
what?
Smash Brothers.
Smash
Brothers
right,
Ultimate.
yeah.
Like that was super cool.
I watched that one while driving to work across the bridge. Should you be watching videos while you're driving? No, but I was.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Like that one's really cool, but for me, I don't remember what year it was. It was when the 3DS was still huge. But Nintendo had their direct or what live thing. I don't remember what it was at the time. And that had a whole bunch of reveals, but then they were like, tomorrow we're going to show off in the treehouse, just as a regular thing. We're going to show off 3 new games, two of which are Miyamoto games. One of those, actually,
That's right. And one of them was
remember
Star Fox Zero.
Yeah, and I don't remember if Codename Steam was also him or if that was just another game that they were doing. But when they showed off Codename Steam, like everybody had moved on in like the gaming parlance. Like they were like, "Oh, we're excited for Xbox today," and I know I wasn't. There was like 20,000 people watching the stream, but I felt I was alone being handed a game created just for me because it was a cel-shaded tactical RPG about American literary heroes made by an amazing Japanese video game designer, and I was just like, this is great. The game ended up being only okay, but I remember watching that treehouse and being like, is no one else seeing this? Why is no one freaking out about this? Mm-hmm. And I loved that.
So what didn't they at one point have the Nintendo Direct, and then later during the treehouse they were like, "Oh, by the way, we also made Metroid Samus Returns. It's done. It's coming out in like 2 months."
Yeah, and Nintendo has dropped weird announcements in their treehouses instead of during their actual Direct, which is quite funny. Way to keep you watching.
I think the Metroid one was they said Metroid Prime 4 is coming and tune into the treehouse tomorrow for more Metroid news. And then that's when they said the Metroid Returns is here.
Yep. Here's a fun one for me. When they, and again, this wasn't insanely hype, but when they first announced Splatoon, the first one, I'll always remember Splatoon not because it was set the gaming world on fire, but because I watched that, and some part of my brain said, "This is going to be one of the greatest video games of all time. This looks like the greatest third-person shooter that's ever been made." And when I would express that to other people, they'd be like, "Why? It just looks like some kid shooter with ink." I'm like, "No, you don't understand. I can just tell by the game mechanics they showed and the premise they explained that this is in fact going to be the greatest competitive multiplayer shooter." I don't know if I used that level of hyperbole, but I was like, the game's going to be fucking incredible. And the thing is, it was. And a year later, everyone was like, well, not everyone. The game's always been a little niche, but everyone who appreciates it is like, wow, this really is like seriously one of the most impeccably crafted, intense, heart-pounding, brilliant third-person competitive multiplayer games of all time. But I was just like, I fucking knew it. I knew it from the second I fucking saw. As soon as I saw that the game was all about like literalizing the content of area control by making it where that's literally the point of the game, and then also how when you control the area you can move faster through it. Like it was such a fucking Nintendo thing to do. It was like kind of like Pikmin, how Pikmin like completely radically re-envisioned what an RTS is, where you don't even think of it as being an RTS, but it totally is. That was Splatoon. So anyway, big ups on Splatoon.
I think it's important to remember, and a lot of this comes down to just the aesthetic and music and things you can appreciate without actually playing the game. But it's important to remember there was a lot of buzz about Splatoon after it came out, and it came out on the Wii U. And still managed to have a lot of buzz.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's like a hidden gem that only I like, but I am saying that a lot of people see it as a fun, cute little game with nice graphics and music, whereas only a smaller, not tiny, but smaller subset of people are of the opinion of me that it is really just a truly phenomenal game that deserves just the most praise a game can possibly get.
And Splatoon 1 didn't even have Salmon Run.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the reasons is because the game is so heart-poundingly stressful that at some point it becomes not fun to play anymore because your life's already stressful enough. So it's because they added a mode that is not competitive.
Yes. I'm trying to think if I have any others that I want to say. I'm bad at like pulling memories out of the ether.
Oh yeah, you in particular.
Another one that I really liked just because it was hilarious. So this is the E3 where everyone is announcing their next gen consoles for the Xbox One and the PS4, and Xbox gets to go first. So they have a horrible presentation, and nobody wants what it is.
Famously bad attempt to get anyone to give a shit about whatever the fuck the Xbox One was supposed to be. Yeah,
and it tanked really bad, and they spent way too long trying to explain how like loaning games is going to work with their always online sort of thing. So then the next day Sony gets to go,
right.
And they're like, here's how you can loan your friends games on the PS4, and he just hands the disc to his friend. And that was it. It was so fucking good.
Sony had enough time to intentionally make their thing like a dunk on Microsoft. It was quite funny.
It is weird how Microsoft's like place in the industry and in people's hearts and minds shifted from the 360 to the Xbox One to now. It's been a roller coaster.
Really has been. Okay, I got my final one. It was when wait, did I have it and then it literally left my brain? That's strange. Sorry. It was whichever E3 had Tim Rogers doing live videos of it, and I believe he was doing them for.
I think he did it for
Screw Attack.
Oh, for Screw Attack,
I believe, and it was when he and Brent Porter, I think, were going around doing E3 interviews, and they had the incredible thing about Assassin's Creed Black Flag.
I think that was just he was at E3 because he went to every E3, and Screw Attack was interviewing him.
Oh, that's right. Anyway, the point is, Tim Rogers has always made hilarious fucking E3 content where he just goes and acts like an idiot at E3. It's really great. But he gave a hilarious interview about his own game, I think, actually, but then also about Assassin's Creed Black Flag to Screw Attack, where he said a number of sentences that me and Bernard will reference to this day. And the sad part is that the video does not exist online, and we have tried so hard to find this video. You guys, you don't understand. But anyway, someone asked him about Assassin's Creed, and he says that famously that he would, quote, rather eat an entire wet Sunday morning newspaper than play an Assassin's Creed game.
And here's the thing. I maintain that he says he would eat a whole raw Sunday newspaper instead of playing an Assassin's Creed game.
That could be true.
Maddie Grace thinks it's wet, but we can't find out who's right.
Yeah. He also says sentences such as, I don't have time to play an Assassin's Creed game. I mean, how long is one of those? 90? 90-60. And then he says he says some stuff about a football. He says that the game is not football, but that is my third one.
There is a funny moment from his Kotaku coverage of the 2019 E3, where in his last video he says, I'm here at E3. The last E3 ever, by the looks of this room over here. Is E3 dead? And that's funny.
That's pretty good.
Because it died.
Wow, that's...
They're saying it's going to come back in 2023, but I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah.
I didn't even know... Here's the thing, and I'm not trying to do this as like I'm cooler than y'all kind of thing, because I'm not. I just don't give a shit anymore. The game hype cycle doesn't work on me, and that's not because games aren't awesome. They are. I don't have the emotional. I'm like Lightning in Final Fantasy Returns 13. I just have a hole where loving video games, or we're getting excited about video games, used to be. So I didn't even. I noticed people were talking about all these game announcements this week, and I'm like, oh, did someone do like a Direct or something? Oh no, it's literally E3 this week. Okay, I guess.
I mean, I watched the entire 90-minute Xbox thing, and my main takeaway was that game about being a guy in the 1500s just going around sideways and stuff looks pretty cool.
Here's the thing. I mostly am just checked out with most modern big budget game design trends. I just don't find any of the trends or patterns or design like concepts that we tend to see nowadays compelling, which doesn't mean the games can't be good, but you have no idea if it's going to be good or not. It's like, if you say it's like I'm someone who isn't into electronic music, but occasionally electronic music is so goddamn incredible that you love it. But it's like, okay, but if you just tell me the genre of the music and what kind of instruments are in it, I'm not going to know if I'm going to like it or not, right? I feel like that's how it is with video games. It's like every single trailer now, they're always so well cut, and none of them have particularly interesting premises that make me like really sit forward in my seat. So it's like, when the game comes out, if everyone, specifically the real heads with the weirdo opinions, says it's good, then I'll get excited about it. Hell, I didn't even get Elden Ring, because even though I love FromSoft, I figured Elden Ring would just be as good as the rest of them, which means amazing, and not the greatest game of all time. So I didn't even get it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I get excited about my B-list favorite JRPGs, and then most of the video game, like AAA stuff that's not Final Fantasy XVI, it just washes over me. Like I just really can't care, because it's going to be a game where you have a map and you have waypoints and you have stealth and you have crafting mechanics and you have experience points, and you walk around, and if you're aiming down sights, time slows down a little bit, and et cetera, et cetera.
And there's a chance that it could be an impeccable iteration of that with oodles of craft and love, or it might just be just like the rest of them, and you have no idea.
My main reaction to AAA stuff during this past couple weeks was they showed an extended gameplay demo of Starfield, and I was just like, oh, damn, I'm going to play that, and I'm going to think it's mid, but I'm going to play it. I can't not play it. I'm going to, and I'm not even going to like it that much.
Someone unjokingly seriously said that they were excited about it because it looked like, quote, darn it, what's the name of the game? Daggerfall in space. And I'm like, no, it's not. If it was, I would want to play it. There's no way that this has the level of jank and uniqueness and like Daggerfall and more, like those early games are fucking insane. They are outrageously overly ambitious, but also fucking terrible in an endlessly charming way. Like, no. Modern day, with these huge budgets where you're trying to sell consoles and shit, and you're re-23, they're not going to let you get nearly that weird or going off of best practices. Like, no, I'm sorry, this is not Daggerfall in space. If it turns out it is, I'll buy it.
You say that, but how fucking unfun to play is Red Dead Redemption 2?
That's a good point. Well, I mean, Rockstar is a bit... Rockstar, I do respect that they... Wait, that's not Rockstar. Yeah, it is. I don't know. It seemed like they had so much money that they could just do whatever they wanted, so they just decided to get kind of weird with it. I've heard that the game is gruelingly unfun and kind of a slog, which does make me want to play it.
Anyway, let's talk about another game which is grueling and unfun.
Wait. I was actually going to have a link to this. Another E3 moment that I love, actually, was when they first announced Final Fantasy XIII, and then they went on to announce Final Fantasy Versus 13 at the same time, and that there would in fact be lots of Final Fantasy 13 games, and everyone just kind of went, huh, that's kind of weird. Okay.
Yeah, so let's do something else a little weird and talk about Final Fantasy 13-3 Lightning Returns.
So, here's the Earth. It's chilly. No, sorry. Unfortunately, my ability to do clever interpretive reads of this game is diminishing every single week, and that is the game's fault, not mine. I'm trying my best here. So, anyway, this is part 5. So, when we last left our heroes, we had a quest involving Noel, and a quest involving Snow, and a quest involving Fang, and now we are going to a place that, if you're strictly following the narrative, you have not been yet, which is the 4th major game area, the wide open spaces, wide open places of Texas, America, aka the Wildlands. This is a big green area, like where we were last week, the Dead Dunes. Instead of it being a city, it's a natural area, quite large. And it is described by Hope as nature's last stand. The people who live out here are not like city dwellers. They don't follow the order, and they quote, don't want to live on handouts. They live off the land. Which, again, every single word choice that the localizers of this game use makes me more and more vindicated in my extremely spur of the moment, not considered at all idea to set it to jokingly pretend like it's set in America, because that, again, it's just they keep doing the American Protestantism thing, right? So thanks, Hope, for that. Anyway, so we're walking off the train, and then all of a sudden, while Hope's talking, lightning all of a sudden gives a start, and it's like, what? And she hears this weird voice, and it's like she's in another world temporarily. And it's this girl's voice who real heads might recognize. I didn't. There's a lot of me not recognizing things until they're explained later in this game. And it's this lady saying, the encounter is ordained. You have been led to the fountainhead, whence the chaos flows. Here you will meet the servant of fate, adorned with feathers of white, the angel of Valhalla. Did either of y'all recognize who the voice was at this point?
No, I didn't notice, which is weird because Yule has a distinctive, weird voice.
I didn't want to say who it was, whatever.
But
sorry.
I recognize the voice as, oh, hey, it's that girl from all the animes, and the voice actress, and not.
So anyway, a voice that none of us recognized, and therefore we'll find out who it was later. Talks to us. I was curious because if one of y'all did recognize it, then that would change your experience of this chapter, right? So anyway, so I guess we need to meet the Angel of Valhalla. I'm glad that a mysterious voice just randomly decided to tell us what the quest was here. She also says, Lightning says, it didn't seem like she was here. It felt like she was speaking from the chaos itself. So we asked the first person we see about the Angel of Valhalla. They say, oh yeah, everyone around here knows the legend. It's a sacred chocobo with white feathers. It appears at the end of the world. It's a legend. But in recent days, people have been actually saying they saw it. Probably because it's close to the end of the world. We learned that Dr. Gissel, the famous veterinarian, has been searching for years with no real proof. He lives in the village of Canopus Farms. Unlike the Dead Dunes, which is a whole lot of nothing, the Wildlands is a very rich and thick location. In addition to the monorail station, there's no less than, like, I think literally 6 different villages, which, village, it just means, like, there's an NPC in a building. But, like, still, there's, like, 6 different little settlements. Mm-hmm. There's a plains area, there's highlands, there's a deep forest, there's some craggy, rocky wastes, some like steppe. It's pretty cool. It's probably my favorite area in the game. Also, I think probably the most side quests of maybe anywhere. It's got a whole lot of them, except maybe Luxurian. At any rate, we go to I'm really going to go to some of the locations today. So at any rate, we go to Canopus Farms, where they raise chocobos and also do farming, and there's shops and some side quests and all kinds of stuff. We talked with Dr. Gissel. If you recall, in Final Fantasy, Gissel greens is what you give to chocobos.
Not Geishel. All these years, they're not Geishel greens. I thought they were.
Why would you pronounce it that way?
Because I thought the H was in a different spot.
Okay, I guess that makes sense. Still, I would say Gishel. Whatever, yeah, it's Gissel.
You were saying Gissel, and I'm saying I thought it was Geishel. Because I thought the H was in a different spot.
No, I get you. That's a very funny pronunciation. Anyway, we go talk with Dr. Gissel, who everyone has said that he's kind of a jerk, and he tells us to fuck off. But when we tell him the words that we heard, he perks up. He says, oh my god, you also heard the maiden's voice? He says that he's seen the angel many times, but has never captured it. Whoever can break and ride him will become his master. Lightning says she doesn't know nothing about chocobos, even though she totally rode one all around Pulse in the first game, SMGH. At any rate, Dr. Gissel says the legend says that the angel's true master will be led to that place, the Temple of Etro. It's a huge-ass castle that we now realize we can see in the distance anytime we're in this area. It turns out it's literally where all the chaos comes from. Beneath it is an ocean of chaos, the great chaos of the stories. If you're fucking stupid, like me, you won't realize this at first, but this is in fact the same temple that was in Valhalla in the previous game, like the place where Lightning did all that fighting and shit. That's what this is. It took me a bit, okay? So that's weird. Anyway, Lightning asks what the Great Chaos means. Like, what does the Great Chaos mean? And he's like, I don't know, man. I'll have to go there and find out. After this convo, apparently according to the Let's Play, I must have missed this, or this game does this thing where Hope never shows up, and because the game's on a timer, you don't want to just sit there and wait for Hope to finish talking at you, so you might just like ignore him and go do something else. So anyway, Hope does clarify that the Great Chaos in the temple was where all the chaos emerged 500 years ago, but it's been dormant since then. So in theory, there's even more horrible chaos ready to emerge any day now. Yikes! We talked to people to find out how to find the angel. We learn all this stuff. People are like, oh, the angel of chaos, it's something about chocobo eaters, because the chocobo eater is always chasing after the angel. So if you go and find a chocobo eater, you'll find the angel. So eventually we go to the City of Ruins, which I think is supposed to be the ruins of Academia. Graphically, it does not look like that, but the dialogue implies that this is the ruins of Academia. So
yeah, they say like it's the ruins of the greatest city or something. And
right, which
I was like, so Academia, but it doesn't particularly look like it.
So we find the white chocobo. He's being attacked by a chocobo eater. So I played this part like a literal month ago because I did this before I did anything else in the game, because that first night, remember, you can go and explore before you finish the first quest. So I watched a Let's Play, but what happened with the Chocobo Eater fight here? Do y'all remember? Do you beat it?
Yeah, you beat it.
Yeah, you beat the shit out of it.
Okay, it must be a modified version because there are other parts in the game where you fight Chocobo Eaters, and they're so insanely hard. They're like unimaginably hard.
It does start with half HP.
Yeah, that could be it, but it might be more than that though, because like I literally just beat a Chocobo Eater for the first time, not counting this apparently, like this week, and it was still really hard. So some way or another, you do manage to beat the Chocobo Eater here. Cool. I wasn't sure if maybe like beating it was an optional. You know what I mean? Like it can go both ways. Anyway, afterward, we rescue the white Chocobo. He's real fucked up, so we gotta save him. Luckily, a hunter appears, and we send him to go get the doc. Lightning and the Chocobo kind of look at each other, and Lightning gives a start, as if she recognizes this creature. Is this someone from her past? A reincarnation? Well, this series doesn't have a lot of characters in it. So I'm like, okay, so my first thought was, is this Snow? Because Snow has white hair. This is the Chocobo. Then I remembered that Snow's already in this game. Then I thought maybe it's Saz, because Saz, loves his Chocobo. Maybe it's that Chocobo all grown up or something. Although we already know that that's not true. I'm not really sure what's going on here. So at any rate, the doc and his assistant, a cute girl wearing a stupid hat, arrive in a cart and transport the Chocobo back to the village. We return to the village. Lightning waits as the doctor tries to save the creature, and once again feels a strong connection in her heart, as if she and this beast have fought together before. Maybe the more astute of you out there realize what's going on here. I definitely didn't, and I'm not going to spoil it. Neither did I. I think that once it's revealed, it'll be like, yeah, why would I have guessed that? Dr. Gissel calls for us. The Chocobo's wounds are clean and dressed, but he's still dying. He's starving and in dire need of vital nutrients, but he won't eat. He's too proud to accept food from anyone except his master. Maybe that's Lightning. We try to feed him, and it works. We're his master. He eats the Gissel greens. So now I have another quest, a sort of a meta quest, which is to heal this bird. To do that, we have to get the very bestest, fanciest food available. Greens, milk, special supplements. In other words, side quests. So you have to do quite a number of things to heal it, but as with other times in this game, like with the fireworks, there's more things you can do than you have to do. So I don't know exactly how many you have to do, maybe like 3 quests or something, whereas there's like 4 or 5 things you like could do.
Well, so anyway, there are things you can get without doing quests, but there are also things you can get from quests. You have to get a lot of stuff for this Chocobo.
Yeah, quite a bit. So first we speak with Sarala, who's minding the nearby garden. Both her voice and her character model are extremely transgender, and she says that they have a lot of greens, but her father is away getting more fertilizer. But we do have one left, actually, so here you go. So we get it. No side quest required. Next, we speak with the innkeeper. She says, here's some fancy milk. Okay, cool. So we give the Chocobo this stuff, and it helps, but we need more. So on the hinting of some NPCs, we head to the forest. We run into a, quote, hunter hopeful. He wants our help. He asks us to defeat some monsters, collect their drops, and give them to him. And in return, he'll give us some high-quality Chocobo food. We do that. It's very, very easy. He says, hell yeah, thank you. Now I can hold my head up high when I return to Yogd village. It then turns out that going and killing these mini-flans was in fact a hunter's trial. He was supposed to complete the trial to become a real hunter, so we just helped him cheat. But then he says, no, I didn't cheat. The trial rules say that I have to get these items by any means. A hunter isn't the strongest, it's anyone who can get the job done. That even includes paying someone else to do it for you. Then Lightning is like, that's stupid. I can't believe I helped you cheat on your trial. But then he says that he also has already done the trial 101 times. And then Lightning is legitimately impressed. She's like, you've done something no one else would do. Anyone else would have given up a long time ago. You just kept doing it. That's, you know what? Maybe you do have what it takes to be a hunter. And she sounds very patronizing, but we have to take it at her word that she's not actually being patronizing here.
I wonder if you just tried the trial once every 5 years.
Yeah, maybe. So she wishes him luck, and we get his soul juice because he's very encouraged by what she said, and he gives us the Gissel greens. We learn more about Dr. Gissel. He says that he heard the voice a whole 100 years ago and thought that he would be the chosen one. So he actually moved him and his daughter out to the wildlands to chase after his dream. But he got super close to catching it, but he was so hasty and reckless that it ended up resulting in his daughter falling off a cliff and dying. He grieved, but then he heard a voice that the white chocobo will appear in the future, and he needs to help the actual chosen one to find it. So, he sees this as part of like making up for being a jerk, and here's his daughter's death and all that kind of stuff. There's some other side quests that I forget about, but whatever. It's more of this kind of stuff, right? Eventually, you get more choco stuff. And we feed it more, and he jumps up. He's now healthy enough to be ridden. That's right. We can ride the chocobo anywhere we want in this area. Even better, he joins our party, and he fights in combat. It's really cool. Actually, it's really dope. When you ride on so in the previous games, it was like a huge ordeal to get off a chocobo. There was this whole fucking like cutscene and shit, and in 13.2, you had to like use a consumable item, but in this game, you just hit the button to get on, you hit the button to get off. It's great, and it doesn't matter where you go, if you teleport or whatever, he just follows you. It's great. When you're on the chocobo, you can hit the right bumper, which normally is to swing your sword, and the chocobo will do a peck. And in fact, if you do it multiple times, the chocobo actually has a combo, an attack combo it does. So you can enter combat and get that first strike with the chocobo. When you're in battle, the chocobo heals you, the chocobo attacks your enemies, and as you level him up by healing him more and more and more and improving your relationship with him, he gains more moves. He's really fucking dope, and I love having the chocobo in the party. Also, he runs. His normal moving speed is Lightning's running speed, but with Lightning's running speed, you run out of stamina, and with the chocobo, you don't. So it's pretty cool. However, he's not fully recovered yet. He can move, but he still can't really have his full abilities. So then we got to go get him even more choco stuff, and eventually that results in us getting him some special flowers. And the special flowers that are actually called Yule's flower, which is interesting. They heal him all the way up, and finally we unlock the real thing, which is that now the chocobo can whenever you jump with him, he'll then do like a glide move, and that can actually let us get to new areas, which is neat. There is a whole side quest to do one of these Yule's flowers. I think it's technically optional because there's multiple Yule flowers, so we can talk about it in min-moms, but it is a hilarious side quest.
Yes, it is.
It's very good. One of y'all can regale us with it if you feel like. So, what new areas can we go to? So here's the thing. This is Quest 3. We just did Quest 3-1 and 3-2. Turns out, though, that Quest 3-1 and 3-2 are also a prerequisite to starting Quest 5, which is very strange. We're not starting exactly. To start Quest 5, you just have to hear, hey, you should go over to this place. That's 5-1. But then to go to that place, you have to have a chocobo. Because it's like a big jump you can't make. So it's very odd. So we can go northwest to go to a rocky tunnel zone, which is where we go for the rest of Quest 3. Or we can go to the northeast zone. Now, why might we go to the northeast zone? And I'm going to tell you because this does come up at this point in the game. If you're exploring and you head to the northeast zone, there's another town where it's like they're like exploring the upland and they're like doing research. It's like a research station because there's like wind and stuff. There's like little windmills. And if you go up there, everyone talks about this crashed ship. At the very north end, there's this ship and it crashed. And you're like, okay, an airship crashed. Cool, that could be anything. And then you hear, yeah, and there's this guy there. This guy there by the crashed ship. And of course, once we realize everything in this game is just characters from the previous games, and we think about which of our characters might be associated with flying a plane, then you hear someone be like, yeah, it's this goofy guy with big hair and a chocobo on his head. And I'm like, let's fucking go. That's where Saz is. So, we're talking about that quest next week, but at this point you probably will realize, oh, I bet I can go over there to meet Saz. So, we don't go there, though. We go northwest to the village of Polte. The village of Polte is a secluded place with religious folk who worship Etro. We learned that they're not like those weirdos in Luxurian who are like really freaky cultists who murder people. They're just regular old good religion having folks who just want to be left alone, please, by the order. So, you go there. It stands in a blasted rocky land filled with huge temple ruins of all kinds. We meet a man awaiting the end. That's what the game calls him. And he's like, oh shit, it's the white chocobo. You're the bringer of the end. Go to the temple. I'll pray for your safety and soul. So we use the chocobo to do some cute platforming and jump and glide to the temple. Sadly, there's also a ladder we have to climb, which means we can't take the Angel of Valhalla into the temple with us, which is a damn shame. Luckily, like I said, this area has a gazillion side quests, so you get to spend lots of time with this chocobo. Don't worry. So lightning reminds us that the unseen chaos that ruined the world was all unleashed because one man, Caius Ballad, wanted to save the girl he loved. Well, simple time. So lightning enters the temple of Etro. Lumina shows up again and is like, hey, what are you doing here? There's no souls to save here, just dead people. Get out of here. Lightning doesn't know what the place is, but she does. An iconic voice interrupts and says, it's a graveyard for the living dead, where no one seeks your salvation. He says, we only seek oblivion. It's Caius motherfucking Ballad. He calls Lightning woman who would be goddess. So Caius strikes Lightning good with a curse that drains her HP. So basically, we're about to have a dungeon. It's not nearly as long as last week's dungeon, but it is pretty hard. Unlike last week's dungeon, a lot of the mobs are pretty tough, especially the one against a flan. Do those flans fuck you the fuck up?
I hated those flans so much, and I could not avoid them. They always managed to hit me when I was trying to run past them. They're really hard to fight,
and they cast spells, and if you don't get a perfect dodge, if you don't get a perfect block, which luckily I'm pretty good at perfect blocks, but if you don't get a perfect block, they annihilate you, and they're pretty hard to stagger as well, and you always fight two of them, but I will say, by the end of this dungeon, I felt so powerful. I would be fighting two flans, and I'd be like, all right, I'm going to launch spell. I would literally be like, spell, 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 spell. And then I see a different one is casting its ice spell at me. I would like switch garbs, perfect block the other guy's attack, and then go back to attacking the first guy to keep the pressure on. And by the time I was doing that shit regularly, I was like, damn, I feel good. It's really hard, though. Those guys suck. Anyway, yeah, but the whole time you're in the dungeon, your health drains, but it's really not very fast. It's really not a huge deal.
Yeah, whatever. I was like, oh my god, this is going to be the worst thing ever, but it wasn't that big a deal.
No,
the flans were the big deal.
Yeah, it would have been really hard even without that. So anyway, where am I? Right. Lightning is like, why aren't you dead? He says, they won't let him die. Instead, he must haunt these halls. The temple is a shrine to chaos, where the living dare not tread. He disappears in his dramatic fashion. Lumina tells Lightning to leave because she'll lose her powers, and she's not supposed to be here. Lightning's like, whatever. Hope says that Caius continuing to exist is an unpleasant surprise, which is, yeah, that's kind of funny. I guess Hope didn't see the secret ending of the last game. So Lightning ventures through the temple and finds, as we'd expect, Yule, breathed in chaos. She says Lightning has been called to the fountainhead whence the chaos flows. Lightning realizes that that's the voice we heard earlier when she first arrived in the beautiful land of Texas. Yule was the one who called her here. Yule says that she spoke to Lightning so that Lightning would make her wish come true. Her wish is that the Savior would come save Caius' soul. He has lost his undying heart, and he yearns to die, but he can't. The chaos binds him and forces him to continue living. Yule summons up some floating platforms for us to jump on. After jumping up on all those platforms, we encounter another Yule. She says, he suffers because of us. Lumina, here, I gotta admit, I didn't say this in the previous game. I hate Yule. I think she's a stupid character. I don't like her voice acting. She has no personality. She's just suffering girl.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And she doesn't have a good design either. So, like, the fact that, like, Kais is so in love with her, and, like, so is Noam, like, her, she's just a waif.
I mean, there weren't a lot of people left.
Not true, she is the only girl. Okay. Also, as a lesbian, I have to admit, she is any girl. But yeah, I don't know. She's just like giving her boring voice performance where she's like, he suffers because of us. And then Lumina shows up and reminds us all how Viserious works if we didn't play the previous game. Lightning realizes that since each Yule is an individual, their wishes contradict each other. Some Yules want Caius to die and be free of his eternal torment. Other Yules, selfishly, want him to keep on living because they want to be with him. Lightning is like, yo, I ain't getting involved in this polykill shit. Lumina's like, too bad. You're on Discord, baby. Lightning realizes that each of Yule's souls, so there's a bunch of Yules here. As you're going through this dungeon, you're constantly talking to them and learning this lore, and it's a lot, but it also does not coalesce into anything. It's quite confusing. There might be a lot going on here, or it might just be nonsense. I can't really tell. So Lightning realizes that each of Yule's souls return to the chaos and were drawn to each other. Every time Yule dies. So now these souls are a cancerous mass of sorrow and pain and longing. So the chaos that's destroying the world, it's Yule. It's just Yule's suffering is literally at the heart of everything that's wrong with the world right now, which is kind of neat because it makes us think about the fact that the world in 2 had to be sustained on the suffering of 2 women, right? On the suffering of Fong and Vanille. So now we've got Yule and Caius and like their suffering sort of being at like the heart of like the state of the universe. It's interesting for sure. Anyway, she says that the darkness that surrounds the Yules, Yule says that the darkness surrounding all the Yules is the unseen chaos. Then we see another Yule who says, it was us, we destroyed the world. She says each time she died, her prayers grew more desperate before they became the unseen chaos. Once the unseen chaos and unseen darkness was created, it couldn't be stopped. It broke the dam the goddess had built and drew lightning into the other realm. It shattered the boundary between worlds. So that's kind of cool because it brings up the timey-wimey question of like, when did this happen? Because like it happened at the end of time, but also happened at the end of Final Fantasy XIII 1. Because it's like the chaos broke out of its bounds and then crossed. It probably existed beyond time, right? And then it broke into time at a certain point that is both cause and effect. Kind of cool. Lightning is like, so all this began because you couldn't let go of Caius? Him? I mean, at least he's got something going for him. He's got a nice voice.
Yeah, he does have a cool voice.
And a cool sword. The chaos and all of its power grew out of Yule's need. So yeah, the game really does it definitely in the previous game, it was like Yule is an endlessly suffering victim. Here it's kind of like Yule is selfish. Like Yule's need for Caius and inability to let go of him did destroy the entire world. Hey, what every other character in this game does that remind me of? So Yule reiterates that all the Yules are the unseen chaos. They're what gives him life while he yearns for death. So her own desire for him is preventing him from getting what would make him happy. But the Yules also do want him to find peace. They are a contradiction which cannot be resolved. Yeah, you heard me. They literally called this a contradiction, and I can't figure out a Marxist take on it. That's how gone I am at this point. Sorry. This game is really fucking fun, but I don't know what it's trying to say. So the chaos is their love for Caius. Cool. So as Lightning continues, she tells Hope that if the unseen chaos is released, it'll destroy everything they're trying to do. So she thinks that the way to stop the chaos is to do what Yule wants and save Caius. We have to do what Yule wants, which is a single Same. It's actually is a really cool contradiction. From a character standpoint, it's very compelling, actually. Just this irresolvable. You definitely you feel two different ways, and there's no way to square that circle. We've all been there, folks. Lightning eventually finds Kai sitting on the crystal throne. He flatly refuses her salvation. He's like, no, you can't save me. She says, I'm not asking for permission. I'm going to do what Yule wants. Yule reminds her that there is no one thing that Yule wants. Also, he keeps going on about how, like, he's suffered so much because of all the Yules dying, and he's pretty much just like, haul my Yules, lightning. Gone. Which
dear.
is something I have not been able to get out of my head for the last, 3 weeks. He tells Lightning that she doesn't get it, that she can use multiple slurp juices on a single Yule. And anyway, he also says that he's like, sure, try to save me. He isn't being sarcastic. He's like, fucking go for it, dude, if you want, right? So we fight him. He's really, 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 really hard. Yeah. I made the mistake that I often make in games like these. I always do this with Dragon Quest games, where I fight a boss is way too hard, not just kind of hard, but holy shit hard. And I think, wow, because I got owned that hard, I don't just need to go try again. I need to go level up a bit, or maybe even a bunch, because it was so hard. And then I level up too much, and then it's too easy, and I don't get to really enjoy the fight. That's what happened here. Okay, but because remember, if we had done this in order, we would have done this before doing the Dead Dunes quest, right? And at that point, it would have been too hard. So anyway, here's how he works. Well, he
just hits you forever, constantly.
Well, yeah. So there's still what I really like about this is they're still basing all his mechanics on how he fought in 13.2 and how he fought in 13.2's DLC. He's the same guy. He has the same moves. This game doesn't even have paradigm shifts anymore, but he still does. He has commando mode and Ravager mode. It's really cool how it's if you play the previous game, you know what this guy's going to do to you, even though the battle system's different now.
I was pretty surprised to see they actually called it Commando and Ravager. I was
I found it really cool. And even the way that you stagger him and stuff is similar to the previous games. He takes a lot of mechanics from the previous games. So when he's in commando mode, I'm gonna skip one thing real quick, but mostly what he does is in commando mode he just hits you a bunch. All the moves are pretty hard to block. They do not horrible damage, but pretty good damage. He's also constantly hitting you with status effects. He's also constantly healing giving himself buffs. So you might want to put Dispel on yourself. And in this game, you have you have 12 slots to put attacks, but probably one of them for each of your 3 guards is always going to be guard. So that gives you 9 options, which isn't a lot. So you might want to use Dispel. You might want to try and Debrave him. For me, that was a big deal. If the first time I fought him, I had Debrave, but it didn't have Defaith, I think. Anyway, there's all kinds of options. He hits you hard. But then he switches to Ravager mode, and at first he casts Fira and Ice, like Blizzara and stuff like that, and then he's casting the Agas, and then he casts spells that you don't even get to have, it's called Whirlwind. It's pretty much just Arrow 4, right? It's the next layer above Iroga. And he just casts the bejesus out of them. And none of this is super heavy attacks, but it just wears you down, and you don't know when the fuck you're supposed to hit him. And then he has a move. What's it called, Bernard?
Oh,
his Whammo move, Mega Death or some shit.
I don't know. I forget.
Whatever. But he's got a Whammo move where, if you're me fighting him for the first time, if you don't block it at all, it is either an insta kill or it takes it's an insta kill if you're not very close to max health. If you block it, it still does a fuck ton of damage if you block it. Now, if you perfect block it, like anything else in the game, it does literally 0 damage. And this is the point where if you go online to look at, like, how do I beat this guy, most of the guides or the tips are just like, you need to learn how to perfect block this attack. I'm sorry, you simply need to figure it out. There's no way around it. It's not insanely hard, actually. It's just that he doesn't use it super often, so you only get 1 or 2 chances to try and block it in the course of an attempt on the fight, right? Did either of y'all manage to perfect block it?
I don't think I did. I beat Caius on my second try, and I hadn't figured it out, so I don't think I ever perfect blocked it.
I have not fought him yet.
Oh, that's right. You had to watch the video. Anyway, when I first fought him, I wasn't able to figure out, like, I actually never figured it out either, but I know where it is. Like, I know at what point in animation it is, so, like, if I just practiced it a bit more, I probably, like, it actually is relatively telegraphed. It's just that it's a very long animation, so it's really hard to not jump the gun on it, right? Mm-hmm. But it's definitely easier than some other attacks in the game, and that makes sense. It's like, you really need to block this thing, so we'll make it not too hard, it's just scary. Anyway, I didn't get to figure it out because I leveled up too much. So when I tried it my second time, I beat him in 1 shot. But anyway, if you're more leveled up, it'll still do a lot of damage, but not enough to just annihilate you. There's some other tricks to this, if you're listening and you might be stuck on this. The reason why it's good to do Dead Dunes is that if you've done the first 2 quests and the Dead Dunes quest, you'll have 2 very interesting garbs. One of them protects against, it reduces all physical attack damage by like 90% or some shit, but then it has some big drawback. I think it like reduces your attack power to like almost nothing. And then there's a different one that's the same thing but for magic. So if you make use of those, it's not garb, sorry, it's accessories. So if you make use of these accessories and are good at switching properly, you can just make it where he cannot fucking touch you, right? Now that makes it harder to hurt him because the garbs lower your ability to hurt him, right? But it's pretty interesting. Like, that's really, really cool, right? And that is the strat that most guides say to try and use if you can't get him. Also, it's good to fight him with a maximized EP meter, because once you do break him, you can really wail on him. It's just that you don't have a lot of time to wail on him. You have to break him many, many, many times. So once you break him, you're going to want to wail on him as much as possible using your like limit break move, right, or whatever. Anyway, I think it's befitting that this character who has such dramatic presence has a stupendously hard battle. I love it. Good on him. But
I found that the big thing that helped me was I used D-Faith and D-Brave. I hadn't been using them up until that point, but it helped a lot. And
also, the game doesn't give you those for quite a while. Like, if you're playing through the game in a different order, you very well might get to this battle without having those spells, or those attacks, right? Yeah, D-Brave and D-Faith are a big freaking deal, and they're so useful. Especially because in this game you can't. There's very few ways to cast buffs on yourself in this game. Unlike previous games, you don't get to buff yourself. There's only 2 ways to buff yourself. You have to use special items that are consumable, or there's certain garbs or moves where you can like conditionally buff yourself if you like do something. But you can't just you can't just cast protect, right? So yeah, Bernard's totally right. D-Braving and D-Faithing him is a big fucking deal. So anyway, good luck, but it's not at all impossible, okay? It's not at all impossible. If you do a bunch of side quests, even though those all only give you small stat boosts, they do add up, right? They add up.
Also, so anyway, I mean, on my second attempt, I actually got a score higher than 1. I still only got 1 star, but my score was something like 8,000.
Nice.
So
I think I got 2 stars on this fight, actually. Like I said, though, I was way over level because, I'm taking the lead on this, so I've done a shit ton of side quests and also gotten all kinds of good equipment. Anyway, so after the fight, Caius says Lightning cannot claim his soul. Behold! That's not his voice. Behold! There we go. He throws his stupid sword. No, Bernard, that's the cool sword. Bernard wrote this part of the notes because he was helping me. He throws his cool sword in the air and lets it fall back down, piercing himself in the chest. He doesn't die, though. He explains he literally is incapable of dying. Yule's power is too great. Again, at this point, Yule starts to take on the idea of, almost like a villainous nature. Like she means no harm, but the chaos is going to destroy reality. So he says, in the world that God is building, can you welcome her with open arms? No, you cannot. It is a new future, and there is no place for her in it. We must stay here. The chaos is where we belong. Lightning. Also, very fun to say the word lightning in that voice. So Lightning is like, you're just going to stay here with Yule and be destroyed along with the world? He says some fancy shit about how he's going to be the shepherd of souls destined to wander the darkness, whatever. Lightning repeats a recurring theme of the game, which is, do you think that's going to atone for what you did? He doesn't answer. Yule appears. She says that she wants to stay. Lightning says if they don't want salvation, then she can't do anything about that. Caius says, leave. Don't confuse Yule any longer. Lumina appears and asks Yule if she has something to say. Yule says she made a promise that she told him that they would meet again. Sure. Lumina tells Lightning there's a Yule who loved someone else too. I wonder what she wants. Which is neat. To make sure we all understood everything, Lumina says that the events of the last game at the end all happened because Yule is like the chaos or whatever. Bernard or me still doesn't totally understand. I actually got a little bit of a read on it now that I've read it all again. I think I've got some reads on it. Although I didn't the first time around. Lumina
it's
says
weird. It's all very. It's on one hand, it's sort of simple, and they explain things 5 times. But on the other hand, I'm like, I still don't quite get it.
It's like there's it's like there's a hole in the donut, and they fill the donut with endless exposition, but then there's a hole in the middle of the donut hole, right? And you're just like, something just isn't quite clicking about the sort of just thought of what exactly is going on here, right? Even though we get all kinds of details about it. So anyway, I take it back. I do find it quite intriguing. So Lumina says that Lightning can't save everyone. Can you live with that? Lightning is like, I can't save anyone who doesn't want to be saved. So she leaves the Wildlands, and it says main quest completed. So I guess that's just it. Finally, Yule appears to Lightning on the bridge outside the temple. She says that she started the legend of the Angel of Valhalla by speaking through the chaos to anyone who would listen. She says that their fates were intertwined long before she came to the Wildlands. So then the Angel of Valhalla appears, and it turns out it's the reincarnation of Odin. And Lightning is like, Odin, my dear friend. And I'm like, you're really just reading a lot. Y'all are just pretending a lot of things happened in the previous games that didn't happen. But then she did say something like, we fought alongside each other for so long. So we do realize that, okay, yes, Lightning did fight alongside Odin, her summon, right? She rode on top of it like a horse. They did fight for
500 years
or something.
Precisely 500 in 13.2.
Well, they
precisely 500 because she sure didn't use him in 13.1 because I never used summons in 13.1.
Well, I think it might have been more than 500 because, again, I think that Valhalla exists outside of time or something. But the point is,
who knows? True.
The point is, they did fight for a bazillion years, but that all happened off screen. I didn't even remember that was Odin. I thought it was just some horse. So they're trying to make this whole emotional thing of I'm reuniting with Oh my god, I'm reuniting with Odin. What a joyful reunion. The angel, the chocobo was Odin all along. And I'm like, all right, that's fine, I guess.
Yeah, and it was funny for me because Odin appears in his human form, because if you'll remember, the summons from 13.1 are Transformers.
Mhm.
He appears in his human form, and I'm like, what is that? I don't... and then she says Odin. I'm like, oh, yeah, Odin is also not a horse. He's also a dude. But like, in 13.2, you only ever see him as a horse. And so I'd forgotten what he looked like and was really confused.
I find it a very unearned emotional beat here. But oh well, whatever. This game has...
I liked it because the opening scene of 13.2, where she's riding on Odin and you get the tutorial and all of that stuff, is really fucking cool.
It is very cool.
I grew attached to Odin because of the cool factor and the fact that I had to do that whole sequence 3 times. Once because I watched the attract mode, then twice because my game freaked out in the middle of the final part of that fight.
You know what? And I will say that this game is called Lightning Returns. It's all about Lightning. It's sort of recontextualizing Lightning as the main character of the series in a bigger way than she was before, really, where she was just one of 6. Her theme, or specifically her motif, is in like every track of music in this game. It's very subtle. I mean, it's only 2 notes, so it's kind of easy to sneak it in there, right? But it's really cool. So being like, it's like getting the game back together, right? And that includes her summon. So it actually works. It's just kind of a funny moment to me, because I was like, oh, I guess that's who it was. Okay, I guess it wasn't Saz. Anyway.
I was looking because the Angel of Valhalla has a tattoo on their face, and I was like, which party member has the tattoo on its face? Is this Zell from Final Fantasy VIII?
Man, really, really complex lore here. So that's it for this week. Before we go to Mid-Moms, I want to explain what we're doing next week. So next week, we're doing the 5th and final quest. And as I mentioned before, it is in fact Saz. And here's the thing. It's a really, really short quest. I mean, half of the quest is getting the chocobo, and we already did that part, right? It's like a prerequisite. So what's going to happen is we're going to go to Saz, and he's got a problem, like most characters. And in order to fix the problem, we're going to have to simply go throughout the world and like backtrack and retrace our steps and go to various towns, and just do various things. It does not take very long. And then there's some cutscenes, and spoiler alert, there's not even a boss. So it's like fucking nothing. However, we are also supposed to complete 40 side quests if we want to get the true ending and the secret dungeon of the game. So here's our quest for next week. Okay. Oh, but also, sorry. At this point, if you recall, we have 13 days of game time to save the world. And if you're like me, you complete all 5 of the main quests by the end of like day 5. Or maybe 6. I forget exactly. But like, you got plenty of time left over. But here's the thing. Remember how last time y'all talked about that cutscene where we like see Sarah when we go back to the Ark?
Mm-hmm.
Turns out cutscenes happen every day you go back to the Ark, and that's not based on your game progress. That's based on what day you're on, right? So the plot is going to develop as we go through the days. So for next time, here's our goals. Complete the Saz quest. Complete 40 side quests. I end up doing like 50, whatever. Complete however many side quests you feel like you need to complete, if you feel like doing that or not. Also, go all the way to the final day. And at some point, that's probably going to mean you warp back down to Luxurion, you stay at an inn and sleep all day, and then you go back to the Ark and watch the next cutscene. Got it?
Got it.
Yes.
So we're going to be at the final day, ready to do whatever. Now, that also does, I'll say, include the optional bonus dungeon. I'll spoil it. Turns out, if you unlock the optional bonus dungeon, turns out there's 14 days, not 13. So you get one more day, and you can spend the 13th day going to the optional bonus dungeon, and then all the end game stuff happens on the 14th day. So whether you feel like engaging with that or not, I do not give a shit. But we're going to reconvene at day 14 and talk about everything that's happened to get us there. Make sense?
Sounds good.
Yes.
Cool. Because I do think it'll be a good bit. It's just a smattering of random cutscenes and side quests. Hell, maybe I'll read some data log. Whatever. So that's what we're doing for next time, and let's listen to some more music.
So I'll start because I only played a little bit, so I am more likely to be overwritten by you guys. But while I was trying to find the town I was supposed to find, I accidentally found a Moogle town.
Yes!
And Moogle town is great.
I love it. I freaked out.
So the first thing that happens in Moogle town is you find Mog, and Mog is like, hey, there's a lot of monsters in Moogle Town. Can you kill these monsters? And those monsters suck, and I hate them. They call for backup and heal off of Arrow, which is an area of effect.
Those are so annoying.
And
I didn't do this Moogle side quest, but I have fought those monsters.
Oh, those guys,
those are so annoying.
I hated them so much. The first time I was in a fight with them, my strongest level spell is Air Yoga, because of course it is. And so I go in the first time and I'm healing people left and right, and they're summoning more dudes, and I get stuck in a JRPG spiral and I can't get out, and I end up using like 4 Phoenix Downs the way you would in a boss fight, and this is just a random mob. I wasn't even to the quest yet, and so I hated it real bad, but I fixed my schemata, so I was fine to do the side quest. So after the quest, Mog is like, hey, a lot of our little duders are missing all over the area. Can you find them? So you go off to find these Moogles, which would be totally fine and dandy, except apparently the Moogles have forgotten that they can fly because they only ever hover because they talk with monsters and chocobos and humans, so they've never needed to go above 6 feet. So these Moogles are lost and can't find their way home, and they've just literally never thought to fly up, look for the forest, and fly home.
Yeah, so Lightning's like, why don't you just fly up higher? And they're like, what? Well, then once she suggested, they're like, that's scary.
Fair.
So your job is to go and find all these Moogles, palm them in the palm of your hand, shot put them into the fucking sky so that they're forced to look around and find their way home. And it's fantastic. Well, no,
actually, Sam, maybe what you said is correct, but I actually think the interpretation is a little bit different. She says she's going to do that. She says that she's going to so that they can find their way home. But some other dialogue by like Hope or whatever at some point in the quest, I think implies that she is in fact not even doing that. She is just throwing them directly to the Moogle village. Because I think Hope says something like, wow, I think that was the perfect aim. Like it probably landed right there. So she's just yeeting them all the way across the game's level into the Moogle village because she's mad that they can't just fucking figure it out themselves. It's so funny.
It's so good. I had a blast, and because I was distracted with that, I did not finish the main quest this week because I had to go and yeet like 7 Moogles.
Also, like the first time she does it, it's like she just thought of doing it. She's like, I guess we'll do this. By the last time, every time the cutscene's different. By the last time, she's just like, all right, buckle up. Here we go, buddy. I'm going to throw you.
Oh, it's fantastic.
I have a question for y'all.
Okay.
So when you meet the chocobo, the chocobo is being healed and you can interact with it, the UI gives you a tutorial that mentions that can give the chocobo a secret name that only you and it will know, because you can type in a name, but of course the game doesn't know that name, so it's still going to call it the Angel of Valhalla in dialogue. So a secret name that only you and the chocobo will know. Did y'all name the Angel of Valhalla?
I didn't see where you could do that.
I believe I named him Bubby.
I named him Gilbert.
Nice.
I will go back and name him Bobby Corwin.
Nice.
It's the stupidest name, and I can't believe that's the thing in Final Fantasy IX. It's dumb, and I love it.
It really is.
Is that a reference to something?
Yeah.
It's Boko. It's Butts's chocobo named Boko, but they expanded it out to Bobby Corwin.
It's really stupid.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so I didn't know Bobby, but I liked how after you found out that it's Odin, I'm like, should I rename it Odin? And I'm like, nah, it's Bubby. Sorry. It's Bubby now.
Bubbus.
Bibbis
Babbis. So that side quest that you mentioned with Yule's flower. So
God, it's so weird.
You go to Yogd Village, which is in the forest, and you're riding your injured chocobo, and this woman is like, oh, hey, nice chocobo. There's this flower that can really help a chocobo, but you can't just pick it and take it to the chocobo. You've got to take the chocobo to it, because if you pick it and it loses its power, you got to eat it fresh. So she says, take your chocobo to that flower, eat it, and then bring the chocobo back here. And you're sort of like, why? And she's like, just could you bring it back here? And you're like, okay, I do want your soul juice, so I'll do that. So you go to the place she said, you find Yule's flower, you eat it. It's good for your chocobo. I'm not actually sure if it instantly heals your chocobo to the second stage, or if it's just like a big boost towards that.
I thought that you just need 2 Yule's flowers, because there are 2. There's another one you can just find.
Oh, I only got 1.
I actually, because mine chocobo wasn't totally healed till I got the second one, I think that it is literally like every single possible thing you can give to this chocobo gives it like a certain number of points.
Yeah.
That's what I think. And you can just get anything as long as you get the points. So maybe you don't even need a Yule flower, because after I got the totally fully leveled up flying chocobo, I later found a couple of quests that would have gotten me more chocobo shit.
Yeah, I think so. And so you go find the flower, eat the flower, then you come back, and she's like, hey. And you're like, hey. And your chocobo's like, queh. She's like, fuck. I was hoping your chocobo would speak. And you're like, excuse me? And it turns out she sort of believes that chocobos, if they eat Yule's flower, might be able to learn to speak. And she thinks this because at one point she was in a very dark place, and she was like away from home, and was lost in the woods and fell down and was injured. But then a chocobo appeared with a Yule's flower in its beak, and it spoke to her and told her not to give up and that she must live and stuff. And then a bunch of hunters rode in on their chocobos and saved her, brought her back to the village and everything. So she's been really depressed and stuff, and she's been wanting to hear the chocobo speak again. And while you're talking to her, suddenly a voice comes from her chocobo and says, don't turn around. And then it gives a huge long speech about how life is good and worth living, and don't be depressed, and have you tried meditation and stuff like that. And it makes her happy. She gives you her soul juice, and then it turns out that the voice from the chocobo is actually this kid who's her friend, who sort of was like, this girl is kind of weird, so I sort of look after her, and had just hidden behind the chocobo and spoken. And it turns out that the first time she thought she heard the chocobo, this kid had been on the chocobo and was the one who spoke, but just the kid is small, so she couldn't see her from
I didn't
down
get
there.
that part.
And here's the kicker. If you talk to the kid again, Lightning's like, it was really nice what you did, talking to her, giving that big speech. And the kid's like, what? I just said, like, you're okay. I just said, like, one sentence. And Lightning's like, what? And it's like, did the chocobo actually speak to her?
Oh my god, I didn't get that part either.
It's a lot.
That's amazing.
This game is very silly.
Yeah, I mean, I told y'all, I believe it was last episode, I told y'all about the one where you help the girl who was a chocobo who got turned into a human.
I did that one this week, yeah.
It's pretty good.
This game is silly.
Do we have any other ones to talk about?
Oh, and there was that side quest I told y'all about a long time ago where a cat's ghost speaks to a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Because this game is silly.
Mm-hmm.
It really is.
I'm looking through, and I think we probably covered all of it. There's a bunch of side quests, and honestly, they're all quite charming and have nice, likable characters. But none that... Okay, I'll say one. There's two quests in that... Because, again, there's other towns. There's up in the Highlands, there's a place where they herd sheep. So there's a whole area you can do quests there involving herding sheep. And then there's, we forgot to say, but Yogg's village, we mentioned it, but never actually mentioned that it's also a village in the forest. So there's really so many villages. Anyway, though, but back in Chocobus Farms or whatever, Canopus Farms, the doctor has these two assistants, and both of them have various, like, they both show up quite a bit in side quests and stuff. What's cute is that one of them's name is 13, and the other one's name, I think, is 9, maybe?
I think it's 9.
And they both end up having, again, quite a bit of character development and dialogue, but 13's one I remember the most, because she has this whole fucking thing on the other side of the map involving like an injured dog or whatever. That's not that interesting. What is interesting is 13 herself. She's adorable. I love her. And it turns out that she's called 13 and the other one's called 9 because the doctor just never bothers to learn their names. I think her name is Claire or something with a C.
Isn't Claire Lightning's name?
No, I know, but I think I think it's a C name at least.
I'll just Google Final Fantasy XIII and see what comes up.
But yeah, she talks about how he doesn't even respect her enough to know her name. But then Lightning realizes, or perhaps suggests, that he's always, every time he gets an assistant, it's always like an intern, right? They come for a while, they learn, and then they leave. And he doesn't want to get too attached to them, which is why he calls them by their numbers, because if he gets too close, then he's always too sad when they leave. But then, after this big quest involving like a chaos outbreak, and you gotta fight a chocobo eater and all that, he actually does call her. He like just once calls her over, and he Freudian slip, I guess, calls her by her name instead of her number, and she's really, really happy. It's, I don't know, it's cool, and like I said, the other one's cool too. Claudia,
I managed to Google it. It wasn't easy.
Yeah, so like every town has these cute little characters. There's a love story in the sheep zone where these characters clearly like each other but won't admit it, and then it leads to some drama where a character makes a dumb fucking decision and Lightning has to sort it out, and at the end Lightning is just like, just talk to him. It's great shit.
Love story in the sheep zone is a powerful phrase.
Also, I feel like this game has had at least 3 or 4 different versions of the my dad or mom or fiance or whatever is missing, or can you go find them, and then they're dead and they have a message that they left and then the person has some emotion. I feel like that's happened like 5 times, because that earlier when I mentioned that the dad was off getting fertilizer for the Gissel Greens, you do go find out that he died.
Yeah, I did that.
Yeah, so it's just like it's you see these. I don't know. You could say they couldn't think of any original ideas. They just kept doing the same thing over and over, kind of repetitive. Or you can be like, no, this is like Dragon Quest VII, man. All these stories are the same story, and that's good.
In the sheep zone, there's a guy where you accidentally scare away his sheep, and you have to get them back, and he gives you sheep's milk. He is
Dr. Sheep.
Yeah, how would you describe his bearing, his personality, his vocal patterns?
I don't know, man. Fun fact, you probably didn't do enough side quests. That's the one that ends up being the love story.
Oh, okay. I just did the one where I found his sheep. Anyway.
The main lady there is in love with him, and you find that out after like 4 more side quests. Yeah.
But anyway, the previous episode, y'all were like, oh man, do the monsters also not be able to make new monsters? But he says he's been breeding these sheep for generations and stuff, so apparently animals still have the cycle of life and death,
which makes sense actually, because
I guess they have a different goddess.
Well, they probably don't have souls.
I guess.
But remember, we also learned that
but robots do, and chocobos do.
We learned that machines are the same as before as well, so it kind of makes sense actually that only humans are affected by this. Like the world otherwise just goes on.
But chocobos do have soul juice, apparently.
That's right.
Sweet, delicious soul juice. Other things that are sweet, delicious is if you like the show, you can head on over to www.rpgbook.club, where any and all donations go towards unlocking new seasons of this. We're about 2 episodes out, so about 2 weeks out, and then we don't have any more in the tank. We're still working on the next one. We get a break fucking finally. So if you want us to not have a break, you can do a big old donation and make us do Metal Gear Solid is the next one coming up. Or if you just want to give us your support, you can do a one-time donation or subscribe to one of our membership tiers. The $1 a month tier gets you access to, I should say, one-off donations, and the $1 a month tier gets you access to the polls to vote on what game we're playing next on the main podcast, gets you access to the Book Club no Kaseki episodes a month before they are dropped in the podcast feed, and it gets you a shiny green name if you join our Discord. For the $5 monthly tier, we will shout out your name at the end of the episode, just like this. Shout outs to Cerebral Wind, Antalia Lerma, Vimk, J-Fro Prime, Eli Bergmoss, Doho, and Tuxedo Ken. We also have a $20 a month tier where we will not only shout out your name, but shill whatever you want us to. Our luminary Car is a dentist and not a Twitch streamer, so his shout out is for your own mouth. So make sure you brush your teeth twice a day. Most importantly, the time right before bed.
I don't like that sentence you just said, Sam.
I like it a lot. It's probably going to happen forever now.
God damn it.
But this episode will not last forever. It is sadly over. For RPG Book Club Longcast, I have been Sam Allman.
I'm David Bernard Houck.
And I'm Caius Ballad. My last name's a musical term, but that's never a thing. I don't have an instrument. It's not. I don't. Why is my last name Ballad? My girlfriend brought that up. Anyway, bye, everybody.
Folks.
Bye.